Did you guys have to get Madonna's approval, or has she seen the movie?
I don't know about Madonna. I mean, obviously, Gaga hadn't seen the film, but there were certain scenes like that we wanted to make sure she felt comfortable with. So she saw that, and she felt like, she stood by what she said. It feels a little bit salacious or whatever, but it's all really honest. It's not, she talks about how much she admires Madonna and always had. She just kind of like pops one off about how things could have gone a little bit differently between the two of them. And I love that scene because you really understand her values.
I go from everyone touching me all day and talking at me all day to total silence. And all these people will leave, and then I'll be alone.
I'd been talking to her manager about the idea of making a movie, and he was like, well, why don't you just come over to her place with a camera and start rolling and see what happens. And the idea, at least that first day, was to just kind of feel it out and see if we clicked. And we did, and she told me right off, like, I'm not going to do anything special. You can follow me around with the camera. I filmed her just cooking and getting ready to go to the studio, and then at the studio. But it ended up becoming the first scene of the film. So it's like I'm kind of getting to know her and then the audiences at the same time.
I want to do the opposite of what everyone thinks that I'm going to do.
There really isn't anything bigger than this.
I had a crew, and I wanted to, use them if I could, but often she just preferred that I didn't. I mean, a lot of the conditions of me being able to shoot was if it was just me, because either she was working in the studio and just didn't want the distractions of having cameras around, or it was something kind of intimate and she just, would prefer to not. And so to allow me to actually gain access, I ended up having to shoot a lot of the film myself, which it was interesting. It became a lot more of a personal kind of one-on-one experience. The bigger events like the Super Bowl and music video shoots, I was able to have a crew, and you could kind of feel the big production around that. But then the film it's kind of this accordion. It just like gets really big and then really small. And I told her from the beginning, I'm going to shoot everything I see, but if you want me to turn the camera off, I will, obviously, anytime. And she knew, she felt like she had agency anyway. But mostly if there was something coming up that involved other people, people who weren't involved or weren't there, who didn't consent to be participating in this, she would ask me to turn the camera off because, she didn't necessarily want, other people pulled into it if they weren't, agreeing to be a part of it.
The truth is,
When producers wanted me to be sexy, I always put some absurd spin on it that made me feel like I was still in control.
She's very super down to earth. I think there's an expectation she's going to be this kind of crazy off the wall personality, and obviously she can be at times, but she just has this kind of centeredness. It's pretty relaxing to be around her, and you wouldn't think that it would be. But she makes eye contact. She's really invested in the people around her. She's really interested in what's going on. And you don't always find that, I think, with people in her position. There's definitely an intimacy. I mean, when you're shooting somebody over that period of time and just sharing the air with them, you do have a kind of bond, but it's an interesting kind of relationship, and it's not like a normal friendship. And for me, it was really important that they weren't thinking about me. And that there would be times that I'd be maybe like in the studio with her and Mark or whatever, and they'd be joking around, and like I'd kind of want to like jump in and say something funny, or like they'd kind of try to engage me, and and I would to a certain extent, but I wanted to make sure that all the people around her, and especially her, could forget that I was there. So I really did withhold a lot, and I spent a lot of time just really trying to be as pulled back as I could be. She was kind of reluctant, the whole way, and but at the same time allowing it, in a lot of ways, trusting a kind of process and not sure why. So usually I would just be in touch with her manager and be like, can I come today? Can I come today? Especially during downtime when she was in the studio, I would just expect to go over every day and shoot, unless there was a reason for me not to, But for the most part, it was pretty open door. I really didn't have any expectations. Like, I guess the way I work is I just go into a situation and I watch and I just try to find the emotional center, and that's sort of what came out of it. Even when I had ideas of how I wanted it to be or how I could produce something, I realized with her that wasn't realistic. Like, I just had to go with her flow, and that stuff was surprising in a way. Like how, the stuff that she struggles with is really universal, like loneliness and relationship troubles. These are things that, regardless of where you are or who you are, you can be experiencing. So,
Does she like being this mega pop star?
I think she loves the platform she has. I think she loves the opportunity to make music and do whatever creatively that she wants to do, and that's like a gift. And she's very like aware of that. She doesn't take it for granted. She's been so famous for so long. I mean, she became this superstar in her early 20s. And it's this kind of funny thing, like people think of it as this like Faustian pact, that there's this time where you kind of set out to become a star and then you have to deal with all the kind of blowback for the rest of your life. And she kind of knew that going in, the first record was called The Fame, and she kind of was playing with that narrative already. But it doesn't set you up for the reality of 10 years later, not being able to like walk down the street and have a regular experience. She's very aware of, the limitations as well.